Hello and welcome to our special show on India-UK trade ties. The UK Trade and Business Secretary Jonathan Reynolds is here in New Delhi to resume talks with Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal. Will we sign a trade deal very soon? Let's find out from the man himself, Jonathan Reynolds. Jonathan Reynolds, thank you very much for joining us here on CNBC-TV18.
Great to be here.
Give me a sense of how your visit has been and what kind of progress have you made?
Well, look, first of all, it is always a real privilege to be in India because for a trade minister like myself, a business and trade minister, the dynamism, the excitement that you feel in India. I know people here are very proud of that, and they're right to be proud, because this always feels like a place of significance where really exciting things are happening. So it's nice to be here, but as well as that, to resume talks on the UK-India FTA and bilateral investment treaty with my great friend, Minister Goyal, who is a superb host, has been very exciting. I can honestly say it has, I think, exceeded expectations on both sides. These are big agreements. There's a lot to be gained when you get them right. So you have to get them right. And I know there's always questions about timescale, but I think what we've been able to do today, and frankly what the change of government has meant in the UK for the platform we can offer you, makes this such an exciting negotiation. But it also, this is a substantial agreement if we get it right. But as well as that, for us, it's a chance, I think, for a whole new phase of UK-India relationships, a new partnership for the future. I am personally very excited by that.
Right. Give us a sense of how is the Starmer government's approach to this trade deal different from the Sunak government's? A lot of work had already happened. They had concluded negotiations in about 14 out of 26 chapters. How is your approach different?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, in trade talks, in trade relationships, personal relationships count a lot more than I think than people perhaps might understand. So it was a privilege to be able to be in India when we were in opposition as the Labour Party, to meet for the first time Minister Goyal and say, look, if the Conservative government, the Rishi Sunak government, can do this trade deal and we were to win the election, we'll implement it. You know, we want to give you that space to get it done. Now, unfortunately, they couldn't get it done, so we promised in that case we'd come back and we would resume it. I think fundamentally what is different on the UK side now is the political stability in the UK is in a much better place. A clear, decisive election result gives you that. We had a few too many prime ministers in a short space of time prior to that election. The second thing is this is a government that's much more open to the rest of the world. So we want to rebuild that relationship with the European Union without getting back into the arguments about being part of the European Union. We want to have a pragmatic level of engagement with China. We're, of course, engaged already with the new US administration. We have great trade talks with the Gulf Cooperation Council. But this deal in particular, I think one that is both of a size and benefit to both countries, and in a complementary way. There are always difficult issues in a trade negotiation, but the natural complementary nature of our two economies is really exciting. So I think we're in a better position to get this done. All right.
I would also like to ask you about the UK seeking significant cuts in certain trade sectors. Which would be the priority sectors for you?
Look, there's a lot in this negotiation. It covers goods, services, the investment relationship, the flow of people between countries, mobility, not immigration, but business mobility, you know, which is really important to a successful trading relationship. Without going into the specifics of that, yes, we start from a position where India's tariffs on UK goods are generally higher than UK tariffs on Indian goods. So there's a lot on that side that we're interested in. On the other side, there are, of course, asks from the Indian government, the things that would make a difference here. And that's what a good negotiation should be. Of course, there are many things that make India such an attractive market for us. I mean, this is a place that appreciates good whiskey. That's always a sign of quality and discerning people in a country. There are whole ranges of other goods. But again, in a way which, when I say complementary, I mean, we have lots of things with demand in each country for, but they're not, the same things. And I think that's great. That gives us the chance to get this right, and it increases consumer choice, it lowers prices for everyone. It makes people better off. That's what good trade agreements do.
But how would you describe the current progress? Is it 70% done, 80% done? Are you very close to the finishing line?
That's a very skillful question. I can say I think people who have observed, and there's a huge interest here, quite rightly, in what we've been doing these last few days. There's a personal warmth to the negotiations. There's progress that has been made. There's a desire on both sides to get this done. And look, I know the joke has always been that a former British Prime Minister promised an agreement in place by Diwali one year. Didn't say which year, and it's been ongoing. But I can only tell you this has exceeded our expectations. I'm extremely grateful to the whole of the Indian team, not just my great friend Minister Gayal, but the negotiating team. Very high quality operation here in India. Again, something to be really proud of. So look, it's gone very well. We're just going to get a few issues across the line.
All right. So you're saying you cannot fix a timeline just yet.
That's right.
You cannot say within a year.
It's always about the quality rather than the speed. And I think because we're talking about something which could be a beneficial improvement in trading terms, and it's for decades. It's for a long period of time. So let's get it right.
But would you be open to have a phase one trade agreement, just the kind we have had with Australia, and now we're negotiating a CECA, a comprehensive agreement with the Australian government? Is it possible that we may have a phase one pact by the end of the year, and maybe we consider the remaining issues for the larger trade deal later?
I think we can be more ambitious than that. I think the strength of our relationship, the personal relationships, the complementary nature, as I say, of the negotiations, means we should go for something which makes a real difference to people in both countries, improves their lives, makes them better off, puts a few more pounds and spending power on both sides in people's pockets. This is what makes a difference. And so I'm of the view that we can really do this.
Okay. So a phase one deal is off the table. It has to be one full deal.
It's not about taking things off the table. It's simply saying when you look at the level of ambition on both sides, the desire to do something of real consequence, I think we can have, a genuine belief that we could get through all of the issues and get to something which is really decisive.
Right. On the mobility front, what kind of access can Indian professionals get in the US? Give us a sense of the kind of negotiation we're having for greater mobility exports, services exports to the UK.
Absolutely. Look, I mean, business mobility is important to countries that have strong service sectors, as we both do. Of course, we do wider immigration policy separate to business mobility, and I know there's been some unhappiness at times in India with the way that's maybe been wrongly portrayed, misunderstood in terms of the talks, and you're right to say it's about that business mobility side of it. Of course, if you look at the current visa arrangements in the UK, it is India that quite rightly gets the lion's share of most of those, whether that's the visas for visits, whether that's the skilled route. So we already have an incredibly strong relationship and welcome that. Again, this is an aspect of the negotiations, but it's always looking for where do we get the most benefit for both countries by again, getting a really strong complementary relationship in place. So,
Minister, you tell me, what would be the most important for you as a trade minister representing UK when it comes to mobility in financial services from the UK to India, or more product lines? What is the topmost priority for you?
Well, look, there's a lot, and without prioritising one over the other, what you need to be able to show on both sides is, look, here is an agreement that will make a difference. It's not just, good words, it's not just a warm relationship, that's great, but how will we absolutely say we'll increase access to each other's goods, services, in a way which works for both countries. So there's not one particular aspect, one product or one service that takes priority. You look across it in the whole, and actually by doing that, this is the point about getting the whole thing done and getting it across the line. That's how I think you end up with something of real significance. You wouldn't want to just be doing the easier things and maybe missing out on the real prize of doing it. Doing it comprehensively in that way is absolutely the way forward.
Any concerns around investments in India that you would want addressed in this free trade agreement, especially with the bilateral investment treaty negotiations?
Yeah, we see this as complementary to the FTA agreement. We followed very closely Minister Sitaraman's budget, where he expressly talked about the benefits of bilateral investment treaties. I mean, this is a really strong relationship as it stands, both Indian investment in the UK and UK investment in India. So it's in a strong position. But, the more certainty you can provide businesses, the more clarity, the more kind of transparency that you provide. And this is what these agreements are about. They sound a bit dry, I appreciate that. But look, we could certainly be saying we've got a really strong relationship at present, and if we get this right, this could be worth many billions pounds more of UK investment into India.
So any special protections for UK investors?
Look, it's about the normal things that you would expect in place from a treaty of that kind. It clarifies what the process is, and in terms of any kind of dispute, what the conditions are. The reason that the Indian government here is recognising the role that they can play is the same as what we have in the UK. Give businesses certainty, clarity, transparency, stability. You know, and in that situation, the brilliant business conditions that exist in both countries can therefore come into play without any doubts or concerns.
All right. I'd like to ask you about tariffs on Scotch whisky. India has recently reduced tariffs on bourbon whisky from the US. Did that come up in that conversation with Minister Goyal? Did you expect similar concessions?
Well, look, in any trade relationship, you look at what's going on in other places, what access is to that. With great respect to US bourbon, I think, you know, the share of the market here compared to the share of the market for great Scotch whisky from the UK, it's a bit bigger. You know, so it's a much bigger market. India is, I think, the biggest whisky market in the world, and that again is a great something to be proud of here in India, that you know the good stuff. And so, of course, other products getting access to a certain part of the market is something that you look at. But look, I think we all can recognise here the mutual benefits of reducing that tariff, if we can, as part of an agreement, again, in a way that works for both sides. And look, it's an iconic, you know, product. It's something we're very proud of in the United Kingdom. I've got my own favourites myself, and we know you appreciate that here. So look, I want to see even more of that sold in India, because you know the difference it makes.
So you would want a similar concession, I'm guessing?
Look, I think we can look at the size of the market, considerably larger for Scotch whisky than for US bourbon. And I think, you know, because of the demand for that product, again, we're conscious of the relationship across each of the goods sectors in both countries. You know, what's the market access arrangements coming in? But I'm really confident, as part of an effective agreement, we can absolutely get the right market conditions for Scotch whisky.
Okay, on cars, we are looking at bringing electric cars into India, getting companies to make in India as well. What's your expectation on automobiles?
Well, again, this is an area where incredible collaboration between India and the UK in terms of the sector already. I think it's important, you know, we have a high level of ambitions for the electric vehicle transition in the UK. We want to also at the same time make sure our own industry transitions and is a partner to that. I think that relationship again can be complementary, because there's different parts of the automotive market, you know, different niches that each country can fulfil. So of course that's part of this negotiation. I'd say as well, you know, I see, and the whole of the UK cabinet feels this, India is a real partner on all of the energy transition. I mean, there is really exciting stuff going on here in India in terms of clean energy, in terms of the tech side of that, how that is managed, how the innovation around grids and how people are going to live their lives in different ways. So, I mean, it's not just EVs as part of the transition. I see closer collaboration being something, again, to get quite excited about.
Right. My question on CBAM. There is a bit of concern on the Indian side that what is the point of an FTA if we are also going to be exposed to the CBAM? Can India get a carve-out?
Well, look, again, we'll be talking about the whole range of issues you would expect in terms of an agreement like this. We're sensitive to concerns on both sides, sensitive areas as part of that. That is part of the negotiation. But look, the desire on both sides, the desire of both parties, is to increase trade.
Right.
That's what we want, the mutual benefits that come from
Minister, just summing up, today we're seeing a slowdown in UK as well. There is Trump in the White House, global uncertainty around trade, reciprocal tariff threat from the US. What are some of the steps that we're going to be seeing from the Starmer government to put the UK economy back on track?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, there are headwinds in the global economy. There's no doubt about that. And people will know the first mission of the new Starmer government in the UK is to turn around what has been over a decade of relatively disappointing economic growth. The whole of the government's agenda is you know, dedicated to that. We've got some very strong cards to play. I mean, we are set to be the fastest growing big European economy over the next 2 years. We have got the lowest corporation tax in the G7. We've got incredible allowances for capital investment in companies in the UK. But alongside that political stability, that openness to the rest of the world, this is a government that is dedicating its own political capital to improving the business and investment environment. So that is everything from making our planning system more straightforward and quicker to make decisions. How we connect to the grid has been a huge barrier to investment in the UK. We've got a triage service in place around that. Investments in skills, in infrastructure, improving that trading relationship with the EU, as well as seeking the kind of ambition we've got here in India. This all comes together into a comprehensive agenda, even expanding Heathrow Airport, a decision that's been put off for decades in the UK, but we are committed to, because we're going to do what is necessary to transform the UK economy, give people the living standards that they need, and the kind of international partners we want to look to help strengthen that relationship. India is a great example of that.
All right, thank you for your time, Minister Reynolds, for speaking to CNBC TV18. Let's hope both sides can clinch a trade deal very soon. On that note, we take a short break, but don't go anywhere. We will get you an interview with the chair of UK-India Business Council on the prospects of the FTA between India and UK on the other side.